another video. I'm Lauren of Lauren Lesley Studio, for those of you who might not know me yet, and I'm so excited because I just got these Himi Jelly Gouache paints in the mail and I'm excited to try them out. Okay, so this is what the box looks like, and you can see the back here. And so when we open it up, I got the 24 color one, and the flaps open on either side, and it comes all the way off, and you can use this inner side as a palette, but they also include this little palette as well, and it's just a plastic palette, kind of flexible. And then you see all of the gouache paints in here. They also give you some brushes, which is really nice. I wish they didn't use all this plastic, and they're in this pretty kind of blue, minty blue color that coordinates nicely with this minty green case. One thing I was a little disappointed with is that this case is not airtight, and so these paints will actually dry out, which is a little disappointing. I thought that maybe this was an airtight container and it would keep the paints wet, but they do dry out, but they can be re-wet with water and reactivated with water, so it's not like it dries out permanently. So all the little paints come in these kind of jello-like containers, and it's quite a lot of paint. If you compare this to maybe some of the other kind of gouache paints that you can get, it's a nice amount, and you just peel off the lid here to reveal the jelly gouache. As a note, it's probably a good idea to remove all of these pans before putting them back in, because they do overlap a little bit and they're a little bit hard to get out, especially when the paint is wet. You don't want it to like spill. Okay. Just trying to keep them in the right order. And the colors are looking really nice. I really debated on whether getting the full set versus this 24 set. I thought that the smallest set, I think it was maybe 18 colors, wouldn't be enough. But then I thought, well, I don't even know if I'm going to like painting with these. But I didn't want to buy two sets, right? Because it has the set amount right here. Some of these don't come off so easily. We're gonna have to come back to that one. That's something that's kind of annoying, is that some of them peel off really easily, but some are pretty tough. So I'm gonna have to come back to this one because I couldn't get the lid off there. See, that's super easy. So as I'm opening these paints, some of the paint is getting on my hands, and so you might just want to keep a paper towel handy and be able to kind of wipe your fingers. And it is fairly easy to move these once they're in a pan, so if you want to reorder the colors, I think that's fine too. And so it looks like they gave me two different blacks, and so I don't think I need, yeah, these are two different blacks. I don't read Japanese, but you can see that the symbols are exactly the same. The code is exactly the same. Finally got this. I'm going to use my teeth. Okay, so all I have left are black and white. I'm not loving the order of the way things are, so I'm just going to take these out and reorder them. So I like to set the darkest colors on one side. Alright, so let's just see how we can reorganize this. Get the paint off my fingers. This is quite messy. So I think the browns feed nicely into the yellows, and I'm just going to add my white at the very end so that I kind of have my set of neutrals here. And then since these are quite warm colors, I want to include sort of warms beside this, with my cools being on the opposite end. And so this is my darkest red. So this looks like a nice gradient. I do have this pink color though, so I'm not sure. Maybe I want to add that one here. I have my purple that sits nicely between the red and blue. Yeah, so then I'm just going to have to add my greens kind of in this corner, which is fine. And then my last black can just go in here. I'm not going to open it quite yet because it's the exact same as this one. So now I'm going to swatch my colors onto paper and see what they look like. Okay, so since these paints are water soluble, I want to keep my little spray bottle of water nearby just in case I need to spray them and make sure that they stay wet. Although when I opened them, they felt very gooey and nice and wet. And I'm just going to have my mason jar glass of water available and handy as well. This is a little desk easel that I bought on Amazon, and I will link it in the description below on my resources page on my website. But it's just nice to prop up your sketchbook to help your back, and the paints fit really nicely on the side here, and I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. You can keep your brushes in here, but I'll also just have them kind of handy off to my side here as I don't want to like dig in there every time. Yeah, let's get started. So first I just want to swatch my paints, and I'm just going to flip my sketchbook over to the side here, and I'm going to swatch them on watercolor paper. So this is a handmade sketchbook that I use all different kinds of variety paper in, and if you want to check out a video on how to do that, be sure to check out this video here. But otherwise, we'll get started, and I'm just going to clip down my paper like so.
You say take me on a treasure hunt. I long for something new. Have you heard the fairies when they sing and dance? Oh, I wish it was me.
And I'm just going to make sure that I'm wiping off my brush to make sure there's no excess paint on it before I do the next swatch.
Every night.
You can also add more water if you want to see how it looks more translucent.
When I close my eyes, I see beauty lives in me. I know I don't yet know it, so I trust you when you say that beauty lives in me too. Later, it comes later, dear. For many of us, I promise you that we learn through the wrongs, and even the rough can be sweet. Just close your eyes and know beauty lives in me. I know I don't yet know it, so I trust you when you say that beauty lives in me It's gonna take some time to get there. I don't care.
We're starting to see mushrooms pop up everywhere. They're becoming a huge trend. And whether it's, new experimental fiber technology that kind of lends itself to being more environmentally friendly, by being made out of like mushroom fibers, or, just simply seeing new prints in surface pattern design, mushrooms are kind of everywhere you look right now. So in researching this trend, I've kind of found that the funny thing about fungi is that without it, we would have no trees, because how funny is that? Trees actually can't grow without mushrooms, and we would have no antibiotics and things like that. So just think of the role that mushrooms play in food as well, in all these different industries. And, we're kind of in the midst of facing climate change, and we're also seeing this uprising of the wellness industry, and mushrooms may very well play a big role in those two things. So scientists are also studying the psychedelic properties of some mushrooms as a possibility to treat kind of a variety of mental health issues. So they're getting a little bit more experimental and open-minded and kind of seeing if that's a possibility. And you can read more about this at refinery29.com/en-gb/mushroom-wellness-trend. It's pretty interesting. But for me personally, I've noticed mushroom prints everywhere in the world of surface pattern design. So when I bought this Himi Jelly Gouache, I decided to paint some mushrooms, because why not? They're everywhere right now. And I'm mainly only using one main pink and one main green hue, and just mixing in some black and white to change the tint and add some shading. But I made sure to keep the jelly gouache fairly wet, but I have to say, it glided onto the watercolor paper pretty easily. And if you're wondering what kind of watercolor paper I used, it is a cold pressed paper. So it does have some texture, and it holds the water really well. So, don't be afraid to use too much water, because if you're using a cold pressed watercolor paper, it should be able to hold the water really well. And it helps it just kind of glide on a lot more smoothly. But if you've been watching me for a while, I love to paint in layers. And this is probably from years of working in Illustrator and Photoshop and being able to just stack layers on top of each other. So that's kind of the way my creative brain thinks. But I was a little worried, because this jelly gouache can be reactivated with water once dry. And sometimes paints can get a little bit muddy when you're layering on top of each other, and the layer underneath gets reactivated and it gets wet and it kind of mixes with the layer on top. And so I was a little worried about how the colors might layer on top of each other. But I have to say, I was really impressed. I had to paint pretty thick, but it was easy to dig into these jelly gouache cups and scoop out a good amount of paint. And the layering process was really easy. I had really no problems with it. And I think that also because these paints are just so cheap, I wasn't feeling overly precious about using too much paint. I felt pretty free to use as much paint as I needed. And when I'm using some higher quality brands like Winsor & Newton for this same type of gouache, or if I'm using acrylic gouache with the Holbein acrylic gouache, then sometimes I'm super precious about how much paint I use, because I just don't want to waste it, because it's so expensive. So I just squeeze out a tiny bit and hope for the best. And so I was really just feeling free to dig into these paints and scoop out as much as I needed. So yeah, because I just bought these on Amazon, and they are a student grade. So of course they're not as high a quality, but I really felt for what I was doing, creating prints in my sketchbook, it was fine. It was really perfect, because if you're going to hang something on your wall, then the light fastness is going to play a big role. However, this most of the time is going to stay closed up in my sketchbook. So I don't think it's going to get exposed to a lot of light. And I made sure that I scanned it right after I was finished painting it. And so the colors were still vibrant. It was still the true color when I got my high quality scan in at 300 DPI. And so I wasn't really worried about the light fastness when it came to scanning it in and creating a print out of it. So the mixing palette was also pretty easy to use for the jelly gouache, because it was nice and lightweight, and I could just kind of hold it in my left hand and mix more paint as I needed. And it felt, it wasn't too heavy. It wasn't tiring out my arm or anything like that. It just felt really natural. And also I made sure that I was painting whole mushroom motifs on my page so that it would be pretty easy to put into repeat once I scanned in the design. So that was my plan from the beginning. And if part of your design is cut off, like if part of my mushroom was like cut off the page or I made the mushrooms go off the page, that looks cool for just a sketch. But if you're trying to put it in repeat like I plan to do, then it becomes much harder to rebuild that area in Photoshop later on. Like if part of your mushroom is totally cut off, you might have to like copy and paste a piece from another mushroom and try to like fit it together. And so I like to think ahead when I'm painting something that I'm going to use for a pattern. So with this design, the way I laid it out, I knew it would be simple enough to select a mushroom I needed to copy or repeat throughout the little gap areas that come in when you are repeating or creating a repeat pattern. And just in case you're interested, this pattern is available for sale on Pattern Bank under the standard license. And you can go check out some of my patterns at www.patternbank.com/patterns by Lauren. And so I hope you enjoy watching me paint the rest of these little mushrooms, and stick around because I do have a little surprise for you at the end of the video.
You're like a ghost in my mind, I can't escape you. I need to believe it was right letting you go, 'cause you are like a ghost in my mind. I wanna escape you, but I do not believe it was right letting you go. I can't stand the thought of losing you. Tell me, do you think of me too? 'Cause every song just reminds me of you and it kills me. No, it was a mistake letting you go. 'Cause every song just reminds me of you and it breaks my heart. You're still here though we're apart. I'm seeing your face in my dreams, I can't escape you. Like a movie on repeat, the scenes just go on. I'm hearing your voice in my dreams, I wanna escape you. I really think I made a big mistake, I want you to know. I can't stand the thought of losing you. Tell me, do you think of me too? 'Cause every song just reminds me of you and it kills me. No, it was a mistake letting you go. 'Cause every song just reminds me of you and it breaks my heart.
So I'm offering a free mini course called Art Style Secrets that you can sign up for on my website. I'll link it in the description below. So if you would like to sign up for that, you can go ahead. And it's all about, it's 3 different lessons. It's a mini course that really just helps you get unblocked and get into the right mindset to focus on creating your own art style. Not having your own art style is something that a lot of artists struggle with, and of course practicing in your sketchbook is the perfect place to start to develop your own art style. So be sure to check that out over on my website at laurenlesley.com, and Lesley is spelled with an E-Y.
You're still here though we're apart. Don't tell me it's over now. Don't tell me it's over now. Don't tell me it's over now.
Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I hope that you learned a lot about these jelly gouache paints, and if you want to buy a set, then make sure to check out my resources page down in the description below, and you can purchase through my link. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to subscribe and hit the little bell for notifications. Bye guys.